Chapter 3499. Seeing Charlie suddenly kneeling on one knee, these Changying's old, loyal men have come forward to support, each one is already in tears. Among them, one of the oldest old man said with tears, "Young master, please don't. We are all your subordinates, how can we accept such a big gift from you?" Quote. Charlie said firmly, "All of you are my father's old men, and you are still here today, so you are all faithful to the Wade family." The old man said, "Young master, this is what we should do. In fact, when young master Changying had an accident, we, the servants, were not able to do our best for him." Quote. For so many years, not a day goes by that we don't feel guilty. Now that you've finally returned, you've given us a chance to redeem ourselves. Quote. Charlie sighed, "You all have spoken too much." Quote. Then, he looked at the orphanage's Director Zhang and said respectfully, "Director Zhang, how are you doing lately?" Quote. Dean Zhang hurriedly took a step forward and bowed respectfully, "Thanks to the young master's concern, I am quite well lately, but for so many years, I had to conceal my identity from you because of special reasons, so please forgive me, young master." Quote. Charlie arched his hand and said, "Dean Zhang, you have spoken too much. I know that you have been protecting me in secret, for so many years, you have worked hard." Quote. After saying that, Charlie looked at the crowd again and said from the bottom of his heart, "All of you, uncles, have worked hard." Quote. The old man said, "Young master, this is all within our duty." Quote. President Zhang also said, "Yes, young master. This is all our part, almost all of our lives are given by young master Changying. In a moment, young master, don't worry, if the people of the Cataclysmic Front attack us, they will have to step on our corpses." Quote. Charlie was busy saying, "Gentlemen, there is no need. Today's matter, I want to personally settle it face to face with Joseph of the front. All of you uncles here, just guard the gate. Don't let other idle people into the mountain. As for the people of the Cataclysmic Front, please also make sure to let them in, don't block them in any way." Quote. How can this be? The old man said anxiously, "Young master, we are here today to fight to the death with the Cataclysmic Front." Quote. Leon hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Listen to me first, everyone. Young master has absolute certainty to deal with that Joseph, you all should not spoil the young master's good deed, so when the front's people come, you just let them go up the mountain." Quote. The crowd was shocked. Several people immediately went forward and repeatedly confirmed with Leon. Leon spoke with great certainty each time, which forced the crowd to accept the order. They didn't know if Charlie was really sure about dealing with Joseph or not, but since both Charlie and Leon were sure several times, they could only do as they were told. Seeing that he had convinced them, Charlie once again arched his hand at the crowd and spoke, "It's hard for all of you to guard here, I'll go up the mountain first." Quote. Saying that, he re-entered Leon's car and continued to move to the top of the mountain. Charlie rode in the car all the way up the mountain with a lot of emotions in his heart. This was the second time he came up to Mount Waiterest, and it meant a lot to him. At this moment on the top of the mountain, all the members of the direct line of the Wade family in Eastcliff had arrived. In addition to that, Orville, Isaac, and Helena had also arrived. However, the original 700 people from the Wade family's side branches had almost all run away last night. The only one left behind was Jonquan's younger brother, Jonathan. The children and grandchildren of Jonathan had also fled Eastcliff and returned to North America in the early hours of last night. As for the other hundreds of people, they all ran home under the stars. They knew that this time, the Cataclysmic Front only targeted the Eastcliff Wade family, and they had nothing to do with these side branches. Under such circumstances, how could they stay and share the hardships with the family? Chapter 3500. Charlie got down from the car, seeing that there were only so few people at the scene. He asked in a cold voice, "Didn't you say yesterday that there would be more than 700 members of the Wade family from all over the world to attend this ancestral ceremony? Why are they all gone now?" Quote. Jonquan said awkwardly, Charlie, as the saying goes, each of them will fly away when the disaster comes. They know that we will not escape this time, so naturally they cannot die with us, so it is only human nature to leave and escape the incoming calamity. Quote. Charlie hummed and laughed and said indifferently, who has the big list from yesterday? Bring it to me. Quote. Eldest Uncle Andrew walked up somewhat depressed and handed a thick roster to Charlie's hand, saying resentfully, here. You can read it yourself. Quote. Charlie directly threw the roster to Andrew and said coldly, immediately notify everyone on here who should come but didn't. Quote. If they don't show up within an hour, they will have to come up from the foot of the mountain tomorrow, kowtowing 3 times and kneeling 9 times to atone for their sins. Quote. Andrew, in a moment of anger, does not know what to say. Aside of Morgan, at this time a decrepit face said, Charlie, all right, old pretend is no longer meaningful. This after another hour Joseph Juan will come, we are dying, you still say these pretending words, what is the point? Quote. Charlie frowned at him, questioned, what? Yesterday's slap wasn't enough, was it? Quote. Morgan took a few steps back in fear and said resentfully, okay, I'll shut up. Anyway, it's only an hour away, I'll wait here to see how you'll solve Joseph. Quote. Charlie didn't bother to pay attention to him, and turned to Andrew and said indifferently, call one by one immediately. Quote. Andrew had no choice but to take out his cell phone and dial one by one. After making dozens of calls in a row, none of the calls got through. Andrew helplessly spread out his hands and said, there is no way, they are all turned off, until tomorrow, I believe they will not turn on the phone. Quote. Good. Charlie nodded expressionlessly and spoke, then wait to see these 700 people lining up and kowtowing to the mountain tomorrow. Quote. At this time, Philip also drove the car up after catching up with Changying's old men at the bottom of the mountain. Once the car stopped and Philip's family came out of the car, everyone in the Wade family was stunned. Jonquan was the most surprised. He asked Philip dumbfounded, Philip, how did you come? Quote. Philip came forward and said respectfully, Uncle Wade, Changying is my eldest brother and Charlie is my future son-in-law. For such a major event, how could I not come? Quote. Jonquan's eyes were slightly red and he sighed, Philip, you have love and righteousness, Uncle appreciates it. But this kind of thing is not in jest, I advise you to hurry up and take your wife and children back. No matter what, the Wade family can't drag you down. Quote. Philip said firmly, Uncle Wade, what are you saying? I think you know how I am, Philip, and I will never leave Waderest until this matter is resolved today. Quote. Jonquan wanted to say something, but hesitated for a moment and finally only turned into a sigh, Philip. You are a good man. My son did not make a mistake about you. Quote. The Wade family members were all a bit resentful. Andrew was depressed in his heart. He and his son had been neglected by the old man since yesterday. Now even Philip could get his praise. He was even more upset in his heart. Looking at Philip, he couldn't help but complain. Philip, you are at least the head of the GU family worth hundreds of billions. If you really came to help, why didn't you even bring a helper with you? What can you do with just your family of 3? Quote. Philip said seriously, Brother, originally I wanted to bring all of the GU family's subordinates up here, but that would add to trouble for Charlie, so I skipped it. Quote. Andrew skimmed his mouth and said disdainfully, adding to the chaos. Now the most fearless is to add chaos. Cataclysmic front will come up at 8 o'clock, I really want to see how to deal with such a small number of people. Quote. Jonquan glared at him and was about to reprimand him when Leon received a report over the intercom and ran to Charlie and said, Young master, the people at the bottom of the mountain said that a few cars insisted on going up the mountain and said they were your people, surnamed he. Quote. Charlie nodded and said, They are indeed my people, let them come up. Quote. Okay. Leon immediately picked up the intercom and spoke, Let them come up. Quote. One by one, the Wade family was a little surprised. They didn't expect that Charlie had even found helpers. At this moment, Wade whispered to Changyan and the others around him, "I don't know what kind of helpers this Charlie can get." Quote. Morgan sneered with a black face, "What kind of reliable helper can he find? I think it's just like Orville and Isaac, just a couple of bumpkins from Oris Hill." Quote. Chapter 3501. Soon, several SUVs with Oris Hill license plates drove all the way up from the bottom of the mountain. Seeing that these cars are all hung with Oris Hill license plates, Morgan immediately sneered in front of several people around him, "You see, I am right, expect this kind of small place from the hangers on, can play the role, sending us on the path of death is not FCU king enough." The expressions of several people around are very agreeable, all feel that Charlie at this time, no matter where to bring help from, in front of the cataclysmic front, is a mantis. Several SUVs stopped, the passenger seat of the first car immediately jumped off a young woman wearing black practice clothes, long ponytail tied high behind her head. When the Wade family saw this woman, their eyes immediately glared. Not only because this woman is extremely beautiful and valiant, but also because this woman they have seen. Because this was the personal bodyguard who had been following Zin, the son of the Sioux family, Ruoli. Moreover, everyone knew what Ruoli had done in Japan some time ago. Everyone even knew that she had been arrested in Japan and finally betrayed by Master Sioux, and her whereabouts were completely unknown. In East Cliff at that time, this matter could be said to be very sensational. But how could they have imagined that she would appear on Waderest Mountain? Morgan, whole person dumbfounded, said, "Sioux, Ruoli is actually still alive. In addition, how come? Could she be Charlie's helper?" Quote. Charlie also did not expect that Ruoli would come over. He originally thought that when the He family came, it should be Elder He and the other He family children, with Zin as well as Walter. But never thought that Ruoli would also come. When Ruoli saw Charlie, she immediately took a few quick steps to him, clasped her hands, and said, "Mr. Wade, I am here at your service." Quote. Charlie sighed and said, "If you appear here today, it will bring a lot of trouble if word gets out." Quote. Ruoli did not care and said, "Don't care about that. My life was saved by Mr. Wade. At a time like this, naturally, I have to come with liver and brain for Mr. Wade." Quote. Charlie nodded gently and said indifferently, "After the matter of the cataclysmic front is resolved, I will tell everyone who saw you today that whoever dares to leak your information, I, Charlie, will never spare him." Quote. At this time, Roma and Luther and others also came down from the car. When the Wade family saw Luther, each of them was even more shocked. "Elder He," Jonquan exclaimed in shock and said, "How did you?" The He family was originally a martial arts family under the Sioux family, so Jonquan naturally knew Luther. A while ago everyone knew that the He family and the Sioux family, because of Ruoli's matter, had some conflicts, and then the He family broke up completely with the Sioux family. Immediately after that, news also came from the martial arts field that Luther had officially broken through to become a 4-star martial artist, which really did cause a lot of shock in the country at first. Many people wanted to recruit the He family, but Luther left Desert City and his whereabouts were unknown. Jonquan also did not expect that Luther would appear here. Luther clasped his fist to Elder Wade at this moment and spoke, "Good day, Elder Wade, I have come here, just like my granddaughter, to be at the disposal of Lord Wade." Quote. Chapter 3502. When the Wade family heard this, they were immediately overjoyed. Although they knew that even Luther and the He family could not be the rivals of the cataclysmic front, at least the He family were all martial arts experts, which could more or less give them a certain sense of security. In addition, the Wade family is also a bit puzzled in their hearts. This Luther, originally a Sioux family, how can be subdued by Charlie? Charlie and Sioux family, this is too far away, right? At this time, Luther had already walked up to Charlie and said respectfully, "Mr. Wade, I have done everything you ordered without disgracing my mission." Quote. Charlie nodded slightly and asked him, "Where are those two people now?" Quote. Luther immediately said, "In the back of the car. I have gagged them and also used a black cloth bag to cover their heads." Quote. Good. Charlie nodded and said, "Please ask Mr. He to arrange for someone to bring them out and escort them to my parents' tomb first, so that they can kneel down respectfully." Quote. Saying that, Charlie also instructed, "In addition, don't uncover the black cloth bag on their heads first. I want to keep this suspense until the last moment." Quote. As ordered. Quote. Luther answered respectfully, and then immediately arranged for several He family members to bring Zinn, as well as Walter, down from an SUV in the back. As the Wade family watched the He family bring out two men with black cloth bags on their heads from the car, they were all amazed. They did not know what the identity of these two men was, nor did they know why Charlie, at this time, brought two people who seemed to be captives to Wade arrest. So, one by one, they looked at each other, do not know what these two people are, moreover, do not know Charlie Gord, at the end sold what medicine. Ellipsis ellipsis. At the same time, Warnia and Mr. Song, as well as the Song family's men brought, had already rendezvoused with Ito Yohiko, as well as Ito Nanako father and daughter. Nearly 100 people under the Song family, most of them are weak ordinary martial artists, and some of them are not even martial artists. The Ito family's strength, on the other hand, was clearly not ordinary. They brought more than 100 people, all of them are the top of the 4 ninja families of Japan's experts. Since the fall of the Takahashi family and Matsumoto family after the Tokyo chaos, all 4 ninja families have pledged their allegiance to the Ito family. Only, this group of ninja until now do not know, today they have to face, exactly what. Warnia asked Ito Nanako at this point, "Nanako, should we give Master Wade a call?" Quote. Ito Nanako thought about it and seriously said, "No need, Sister Warnia, I'm afraid that his character will refuse our help, so it's better to go directly to Wade arrest." Quote. Saying that, she asked Warnia, "Sister Warnia, when will the car arrive?" Quote. Warnia said, "I made an appointment with them yesterday to arrive at 6:20, I don't know how it hasn't come yet, I'll make a phone call and ask." Quote. After that, she hurriedly took out her cell phone and called, asking, "This is Ms. Song, who ordered 8 buses, may I ask why your bus hasn't come yet?" Quote. The other party said awkwardly on the phone, "I just heard about the matter between the Cataclysmic Front and the Wade family. So I absolutely can't leave for Wade arrest today. I'm really sorry, the deposit you paid will be returned to you in an original way after the finance goes to work." Quote. Warnia immediately became angry and said offhandedly, "How can you do business like this? Don't you have the basic spirit of contract?" Quote. The other party was not angry and said with a smile, "It's not our fault, all the car rental companies in East Cliff don't dare to rent a car to Wade arrest at this time." Quote. Warnia said, "Then, you can send us to the distance of 1 kilometer away, right?" Quote. The other party was not moved at all and said, "Sorry, we don't want to get into this kind of trouble, please forgive me." Quote. Warnia was very angry, the Song family and the Ito family, more than 200 people, now waiting for the departure, if you cannot solve the problem of the car, walking past the yellow flowers are cold. Helpless, Warnia immediately said, "So, I do not force you, you have the driver to send me the car, I will arrange my own driver to drive over, how much money to buy the car? Or how much money to rent, your people also do not need to go to the Wade arrest mountain, and so after today, these cars are still yours." Quote. The other party exclaimed, 8 cars nearly 5 million, you're not fooling me, right? Quote. Warnia blurted out, "I'm not that boring. As long as you promise, I will transfer 2 million to you now, and I will transfer the remaining 3 million to you when the cars arrive." Quote. Fine, fine. As soon as the other party heard this, he agreed to do it almost without thinking. Anyway, these cars have been driven for several years, the residual value is not even half of the original price, the big deal when the batch of cars nobody wants. Anyway, used cars sold at the price of new cars, it is money rain. And even if the cataclysmic front comes to the door, they have a reasonable argument. After all, they just rented the car to the guests themselves drove to wherever, and he has nothing to do. 20 minutes later, 8 tourist buses finally arrived late, so the 2 families in 8 cars moved to the Waiterest Mountain. Please subscribe to my YouTube Salva channel for new updates. Thank you very much and keep safe everyone.